I was like, the hell if I don't? You stop playing with me. You better stop playing with me. Why ain't got time for you? The internet's be acting all the way up.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Mm-mm. I'm like, I don't be knowing what be going on.
Can you send me the Oh, you know what? I got it.
Okay, wait. Well, I don't see you, sis.
Oh, I had turned the screen off real quick. I'm gonna send
I'm
it.
like, wait a minute now. I can't see you on the restream. That makes sense. All right. Well, it's been a minute. We're gonna give folks a little bit of a second to hop on in here with us.
Come on in the room.
Girl, sing it again. Say it on. Come on in the room.
In the room. And take it to church on them.
Come on. I need tambourine. Where the tambourine at?
Girl, I don't know what a tambourine is.
What happened? You lost the tambourine. That was an important part of the show, sis.
It is. It became a staple. And then it went back at Jaleel's room. I don't know what.
How you gonna lose a tabernacle tambourine?
I gotta get my own. That was Jaleel Elmo tambourine.
Oh, that made it hit even harder. If it was Elmo, who
It
don't
was
like Elmo?
Elmo.
Who don't like Elmo? Elmo, that dude.
Elmo is where it is. Okay.
All facts. All facts. Well, we gonna wait for you to turn your camera on before we get to hopping into the conversation. Just glad to be back. You know, I know sometimes people be like, is it gonna be, we gonna talk, or is it not? But what I've learned is that I can't do the healing work if I don't have a cup that's full. So when my cup ain't full, I just need to kind of fill it up again so we can come and have these conversations, because that's important. But also your girl was sick and out of commission last time. So I'm feeling better. I'm feeling recovered, good spirits. And I wanted to have this very important conversation because this is a conversation that I find myself having a lot with other women. In some capacity, it's a conversation I think that we don't talk enough about. And that's the relationship that, you know, we have with our mothers, that girls have with, or daughters have with their mothers, whether that's we as the daughters with our mothers or we as the mothers with our daughters. There's always some sort of struggle in there somewhere, some sort of disconnect with those relationships. And a lot of the things that I hear a lot about is things that I couldn't tell my mother, or that I feel like I couldn't talk to my mother about, or things I wish and hope that my daughter feels comfortable to come and talk to me about. And so I have been having this conversation very recently across a lot of my friend groups, across a lot of folks. And then I get Audible. So I have like Audible credits, and I was looking for a new book to download with my Audible credits. And here is a book that literally is comprised of different essays written by women, different women, talking about the things that they felt like they could not talk to their mothers about, and that they wish that they had not, or they hadn't been able to tell their moms or talk to them about these things that they experienced, or if they were going through something and they felt like they really could have used, you know, that relationship with their moms and they just didn't have it. And it was just something that I felt like it's a generational trauma and curse that we need to really dive in and talk about, because we need that to be better, right? We need to bridge the gap. As a daughter and as the mother of a daughter, I hope and pray my daughter feels comfortable to come and talk to me about anything, because there were undoubtedly things that I wish, or I didn't feel comfortable with talking to my mom about. And that really affected me growing up. So I know that you and your mom have an incredible relationship, sis. And, you know, I've had the opportunity to share space with you and your mom. And it's just, I love that y'all have such a connection. But were there any things growing up where you really didn't feel as comfortable as you wish you could to talk to your mom about?
Absolutely, like it's your mom. Now, to be 100%, my mom has always been the type of mom that, you could talk to. Now,
Mm-hmm.
did I? No. You know what I'm saying? Because it's still your mom. Now,
Thanks.
like, she was the type of mom that like would just randomly walk past you in the hallway of the house and be like, "You having sex? You ain't having sex with you because if you are, you can talk to me. You know you good, right?" You know what I'm saying? Like randomly mid walk, and you're like, "No, but thanks. It's good to know."
That I could come to you if I needed
Right.
to, right?
Good to know. Thanks, mom. So she's always been a very open minded person, and then being the youngest of four really helped me gauge my mom's gangster as well, because she's very open. But we got some spicy pieces right in the middle of our family. Of the 4-piece special. I'm the youngest of the 4-piece special, but them two middle kids. You know what I'm saying? So I saw her had to gangster up on them a couple times,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay. So I got to gauge and view as the youngest child. And I remember my mom actually she tells this story. You probably heard her tell this story before. Where she felt like I didn't love her no more. She said I went into my high school years and she was like, "Oh, she just didn't love me no more. She wouldn't talk to me like she normally would. She would do." I was just like, I was figuring stuff out. I was a
Right.
teenager, mom. I didn't hate you. I was
That
just figuring
part.
stuff out. And then going more towards in my adulthood, like I want to say late teens, early 20s, is when I had actually got my first girlfriend. And so before introducing my mother to my first girlfriend, I don't even think she knew I liked girls. So that was a conversation we had on the back end, because the way I introduced them was just like, it was no sit down, let's have this moment, let me tell you how I'm feeling. It was like she's sitting on the couch and then they walked in the door and I'm like, "Hey y'all, this is my girlfriend so and so."
Right.
Yeah.
Like here it is. Here it is.
Right. And so she had asked me like years later, she was like, "So did you feel like you couldn't talk to me, about it? Why didn't you ever say anything?" And I was like, it wasn't a need to until I actually got a girlfriend. Like it never came up. It wasn't it wasn't like I was
I
trying
don't
not
know
to
if there
tell
wasn't
you.
a need to, as much as you didn't see the point in having that conversation in the moment. Is that
I
what it
I honestly felt like it wasn't a need, like
is?
to be like, I don't know, the whole sit down, so I like so and so. I guess because our house was so open, I didn't even think that was like a thing that needed to happen. It's just like, this is who I am, this is what I like. And when it becomes necessary, I'll tell you. And it was necessary then because I had a girlfriend.
So I don't, there's plenty of things that I wanted to talk to my mom about, and I just didn't feel comfortable talking to my mom about. And it wasn't even so much of being worried about like her judgment. I know my mom, she would have went into mom mode when I did want her to be my mom, but I also wanted her to be, I guess, an understanding mom. I guess I didn't want the judgment. There were so many things growing up that I held on to. And when I've gotten to like my teen years, I went through a period of where my parents felt like I was in a rebellious stage. But I was just very angry. I was very angry because I
Well,
wanted to
you might
talk
have
about
been
these
if you was
things.
very angry.
I was very angry. I'm just going to keep it 100. I was super angry because I had all of these things happening and going on. I had dealt with some things that were traumatic, and I didn't feel like I had the space to talk to my mother about it. I knew I couldn't talk to my dad about some of these things, but I know I didn't feel comfortable coming to my mom about them. And that was really hard because there were things that I wanted her to be. I wish it was her that I could talk to her about those things. And so when I get to talking with a lot of my friends in my friend group now, we find ourselves coming back to the fact that, hey, there was so much stuff I couldn't tell my mom then. And then even as an adult, there's still stuff I feel like I can't come to my mom about in the same way that I would love to come to my mom and talk to her about these things. And it just made me super sad because I'm like, this is too much of an issue and this is like too much of a theme. And what is happening with our relationships that even in adulthood, because now my mama, I mean, she probably could whoop my ass, but it'd be kind of different. I mean, I know it's not the same type of fear like when you were a kid to get beat up, but you know what I mean. So it's not even like it's that fear factor in it at this point, but yet there's still some sort of barrier with coming and talking to my mom about some things. And it's not that I'm worried about what she gonna think because I'm extra grown, right? It's not that I'm worried about her disappointment. It's just like, I just don't, that's my mama. I guess it's back to what you were saying. It was like, it's still my mom. Like I could have, talked to her, but it's my mom. And I just think that with that being the case, we kind of suffered in silence about a lot of stuff as women, as Black women. And I just really want to dive into where this comes from. Like, how can we talk about these issues? What can we do to bridge the gap? Because I don't want that with my daughter. I think we have a pretty open and communicative relationship. But there are times where Naraya has even been like, well, I wanted to kind of talk to you about this, but I really didn't know if I felt comfortable with talking to you about this. And I would be like, well, I'm that mom that's like really open and I'm really like understanding and
Still the
compassionate.
mom.
Exactly. But I want to break that barrier down because I want there to not be anything that she can't come to me about. Like nothing. Because I am her biggest fan. Like I am her mom and I'm going to want the best for her. So I've been doing a lot of like self-evaluation on what things am I perpetuating from my own mother that's giving her that pause with coming and open up to me and telling me everything. So what are your thoughts on this?
I feel like to kind of pinpoint one of the questions you asked is like, where does it come from or where does it stem from? How did we get here where we feel like we can't talk to our mothers? I feel like generations is definitely we gonna talk about these generational curses, okay? Is generation through generation is different.
Yeah.
Each generation has an entirely different issue. I mean, there's still some of the same underlying issues since forever, but everything's different. The freedom level is different, literally. The freedom level is different, specifically for a woman. Now, I feel like if we want to compare, and I'm not a man or a boy, so I can't fully speak to this, but in my opinion, from what I've seen, there is a difference between like a father-son relationship. Like I feel like they can talk about more things than maybe a daughter and a mother.
What
I feel
things?
like sex and other things like that, where I feel like a boy can come to his dad like, yo, dad, you know what I'm saying? And dad gonna be like, all right, son, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But like a girl coming to her mom about sex is probably gonna be the last thing she wants to do. You know what I'm saying? So like specifically in that aspect, like if we erase everything else, but specifically when it comes to sex, I think a boy would most likely go to his dad and have an open conversation about sex quicker than a girl would go to her mom to have an open conversation about sex.
Let's unpack that and let's stop right there because I think that that's a really, really important point. I did not feel comfortable talking to my mom about sex, and I really wish that I could have talked to her about sex. I think that some of the things that I wish I could have talked to my mom about with sex was just understanding my body, understanding, sexuality, understanding that it's okay for me to have certain emotions and desires, etc. And that was something that I would not have dreamt about talking to my mother about. Now we are a little more open about the conversation now because I'm like, I'm about to say it. I'm knocking on 40's door.
grown with kids and a husband for a long time now.
I've been a mother for a long time, been married for a long time, been with dude for a long time. So it goes without saying that something's happening, right? So
Right.
it's definitely a more openness in it as an adult. But as a teenager, I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of questions and a lot of feelings. And when you don't talk to an adult that's going to give you a real honest open conversation, because if I had my conversation with my mom about sex was, now you're probably going through some things and you starting to have hormones and all of that stuff. Don't bring no baby in this house.
The end.
The end. That's
Period.
it. You have a baby, that's gonna be your baby. Don't you bring no baby in this house. I ain't helping you with no babies. I ain't raising no babies. Don't bring no baby in this house. Use protection, period. That's it.
I also think, again, going back to my initial statement of like the freedom levels are different and the understandings are different and the social emotional learning throughout generations are very, very different. And so, like, when we think about the type of parents we are now, where we're like, just talk to us, tell us everything, we won't judge you, free space. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how
Right.
we are now. But, like, we have a level of freedom that our mothers didn't have. You know what I'm saying?
True.
And
True.
we have a level of freedom that our grandmas definitely didn't have. You know what I'm saying?
True. True.
And if they're raised by the previous generation, then they have so many stipulations that they are probably unpacking or wish they could have unpacked. They didn't have the tools to probably unpack all the things that they had learned. They just passed it down. But each generation having a little more freedom starts to question the previous generation and the structure of it a little bit more. Until we get to the point we are now where we're like, unpack, deprogram, recreate, but they didn't have that. And so I think understanding that our parents, I think with any conversation we have about our parents, we have to come at a certain level of most parents. I'm not even gonna say all because some situations are very different. But most parents do the best they have with what they had at the time.
Facts.
And
Facts.
as we get older, I think it gets easier for our parents to express their humanity when initially, especially in the younger years, our parents don't want to seem human to us. Like we are like, I'm sorry, kids, I mess up, I don't know everything, I'm a human. But I think, and I mean, I might be wrong, other people may feel differently, but I feel like our
Yeah.
parents, older generations, they didn't want to seem human. They're like, I am God. In all, I said it, do it, be it. You know what I'm saying?
So if it was that as much, I didn't see my mom as not wanting to be human. I saw her as wanting to be human. There were a lot of moments when I reflect back on childhood where my mom did not hide her humanity when it came to me. So I don't know if I can say that 100% like from my perspective. What I do think is that my mom didn't want me to make certain mistakes, and she didn't want me to know certain things, not all things, because my mom also was a very no nonsense mother. Like she told me things that I didn't want to know, but it was just like, okay, I didn't necessarily like need to know that because I'm like, I don't know what was the purpose of this information, but I'm glad, I guess, that you shared it. Like my mom didn't really hold a whole lot back. That wasn't where it was like off-putting for me or the deterrence in me like talking to her about things. It was just that I felt like my mom didn't want me to make mistakes so bad, like so much, that I didn't know if I was going to really have the space to be human, that I didn't know if I would have the space to be human. I didn't know if I would have the space to be a kid that's gonna make some dumb mistakes, because when my mom would get mad at me, she'd be mad, like mad, like angry. And so it was just like, man, I don't know. I just don't need to be to make you angry right now. I'm lost and I actually need guidance, but I want to come to you for the guidance. Like, I actually want the guidance for this, but I don't know if that's what I'm going to get. I felt like my mom was going to focus on the fear of what the thing was more than giving me the guidance. And that's one thing that's really important with me with my children, is that I want them to know I am their guide on this journey. There is life. Like, yeah, mommy ain't gonna always get it right. Now, there's been some times where, they've come to me about some things, or some things didn't come up, and I've had to kind of check myself, because the first or initial reaction was me jumping into parent mode. Like, I gotta, fix this in some kind of way, or I'm worried about this in some kind of way. And then I had to go back and like reflect on it and say, maybe that wasn't the best way to handle that initially, and come back to it. And then we sit down and we have a conversation. So now I try and not have an initial reaction. And if I need to like reflect on something or some sort of information coming to me, I take that time and do that. But I don't feel like my mama would have did that with a lot of stuff. If I had told her she was gonna go straight into mommy mode, fix it mode, like this ain't gonna happen mode, like, and not the guidance that, I wanted. Even as I started, in my early 20s and stuff, it was like this. I don't feel like I had a friendship. I think what was missing is that our generation of parents were very hell bent on, I ain't none of your friends. Like, I'm your mama, and there's a clear line between me being a parent and me being your friend. And I think that that's where I struggled with, where I do understand that you're my mom, but I also want to have that, that rapport that a friendship would have, if
I
I'm
think
making
when
sense.
we absolutely, I think when we hear that statement, and I definitely have heard it in the black households across the country. Okay, I ain't your friend. All right, I ain't your little friend. I ain't, you know what I'm saying? Any of the variations of it.
Right.
We're not friends, and I think that is not an accurate statement for me as a mother. I want to be your friend. I don't want to be your peer.
Mm,
I'm not your age.
yeah.
But I have elders that's my friends, like elders, like 80 something, 60, 70, 80, you know what I'm saying? That are my friends, but they're not my peers. So I come at them with a level of respect. We can talk, we can share, we can bond, we can enjoy events together, we can be in social spaces together and have conversations, but you're still not my peer. So I have a
Right.
level of respect for you. I'm going to speak in a certain way when I'm around you. I'm not going to say or do certain things around this group of friends, of my 70-year-old friends, than I would my 30-year-old friends, or my 40-year-old friends, or my, what I'm saying, even my 50-year-old friends, what I'm saying, might catch a twerk or something. But you know what I'm saying, with my
Right.
80-year-olds, I'm not going to do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to do that around the 80-year-olds. So I think that's the miscommunication, and our language is very important, especially when we're talking about children, because children understand black and white. There is no gray area. So if they have an understanding of what a friend is and what we teach them a friend should say, we're not that. That could be a little confusing for a child. Like you said, a friend is someone that's there for you. You said a friend is someone that supports you, that tells you the truth. You know what I'm saying? So I love the trend now that's going around social media, where there's the mother talking to the child. I don't even know if I've ever seen the original post. I just see everybody sharing it with their children, and their children basically being in tears by just listening to it, of the mother explaining what a friend is, and basically ending it out saying, I'm your friend. Like, I'm your best friend. A best friend is this. Somebody that's going to be there. They're going to pick up the phone no matter what time of night. They're going to do this. And then it ends with saying, I'm your friend. I'm your first friend. I'm your best friend. Your mom is your best friend. And no matter what age the child is in the videos that people are making, letting their children listen to this, from I've seen from maybe like a toddler up to like a grown child, they are all emotional by the end of it and like hugging their mom because it's like that's the truth. So if you really lay out what a friend is, that should be what your parent is to you.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? But I can be your friend without being your peer. There's a certain respect level you have to come at me with. But at the same time, you should be able to talk to me. You just got to come in a different direction. You might be able to talk to your homie in your class, like, girl, she did this and bop, 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 and curse and all the other stuff. You could tell me that same story, just angle it a little different. You know
With lack of profane words and with that
what I'm
level of respect that you're speaking
saying?
on. And I think that that's a very important and a very true statement that you made about being a friend but not your peer, because I think that parents got so caught up in the whole idea of, if I'm your friend, I'm going to wage the respect then, right? So there, if I become your friend, then now I have to sacrifice the level of respect that you should have for me. And that's not true. Like, I respect my friends. I would hope that my friends respect me also. And I think that there is room for both. There is room for me both to respect you as my parents, respect you as my guide, respect you as the person that, provides for me, but also be able to talk to you with a vulnerability that I can talk to my friends about. And I feel like that's a really missing component when it comes to mothers and their daughters having that relationship. There's a certain level of vulnerability that we stop ourselves from having with our moms, whether it's as children or as adults. It's like, I can't tell my mom this, or my mom can't know that, or I just don't want my mom's disappointment, or I don't want her
But you'll go
judgment.
tell your friend.
But you'll go tell your friend, who may also be the person that's judging you and stuff too. But
Exactly.
they might be doing
But
all
you
the
feel more
things,
comfortable.
but
I
you
think
feel more
for
comfortable.
parents, for like when it comes to the mom, I think judgment is an issue. Nobody wants to feel judged, period. But I think even more so than the judgment, it's the disappointment.
That.
We can
Mhm.
disappoint a friend. We can have them look at us sideways like, girl, you should have did that. You know what I'm saying? But like to go and disappoint your parent, nobody wants to disappoint their parent.
Mm-mm.
They'll disappoint a
Mm-mm.
teacher, they'll disappoint anybody else. And that might be hard, but nobody wants to disappoint their parent. And I think that's where what it really comes down to. Again, judgment, yes, but I think it's the disappointment because you can look at a child and they shift from like you cussing them out or, being high energy because they do something or whatnot to you just looking at them like, bro, they gonna feel
Mm.
that differently. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. Facts. I feel like also a big one, and just being true to like my own experiences, right, is sometimes I can't talk to my mom because in telling her certain things, I'm not really necessarily worried about her disappointment. I'm worried about how it might make her feel if
Mm,
I'm telling her certain things.
protecting your
How
peace.
would that make her feel? Whether that's like she failed me, or whether it's like, she didn't protect me in some ways, like, whether it's going to trigger some of her own traumas. So sometimes I'm not sharing things with my mom because I don't want her to worry. I'm not sharing things with my mom because I don't want her to take on my vicarious trauma through it, right? And vice versa, because sometimes in telling her what's going on with me, I might know some of her trauma, and then I have to take that trauma on, and I have to carry that, and that becomes part of who I am. So sometimes I'm not talking to her because I don't know how it's going to affect her if I tell her the truth, where this is going to go when she goes. And I think that's a real tough position to be in as a kid. And it's definitely one, I don't want for my daughter to have with me. I don't want her to worry about how it's going to make me feel. I just
Mm-hmm.
want you to tell me. And when she has told me, like, I wanted to tell you the truth about this thing, but I was afraid of how it was going to make you feel. And I would be like, oh, honey, don't worry about that. Because let me tell you one thing about me. I'm gonna be all right. Your mama's a strong cookie. Even if it hurts my feelings, I'm resilient. I'm gonna be all right. That don't worry. Like, your job isn't to be in care of my feelings. Now, that doesn't mean that I want you to be reckless and
Right.
disrespectful,
It's
but
different.
it's just a difference. But you don't have to be in care of, you don't have to cradle my feelings. Like, that's not your job. That's my job to a degree as your
Yeah.
mom, but that's definitely not your job. And I don't feel like that I can do that with my mom. Like, I'm gonna be cradling her feelings in some way. And I don't want to do it sometimes. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, sometimes I don't want to cradle my mom's feelings because sometimes I just need my feelings cradled. And I just need
Right.
to hold space and to be, in her lap, and that's it. And so I can't really do the exchange of, okay, well, now mom is crying and now mom's upset, and
Yeah.
when a lot of children, when they don't come forward about things like sexual abuse, that is a huge part of it. Like, when I've talked to kids where it's been like, we got to tell your mom, what happened, because I know your mom will want to know. They're afraid. They're like, my mom is not going to be able to handle this. Or, how's this going to make my mom feel? Is my mom going to be sad? Or you tell the mom, and then the kid is like, hey, my mom has been crying nonstop. She keeps blaming herself, and everything's all her fault. And now she's kind of going through the emotions of what happened to me, and I don't feel supported. So sometimes I think kids don't, or women don't, talk to their moms because they don't want to be in care of their feelings, or they don't want to hurt their feelings, or they don't want to, make their mom sad. And I wish that we could talk about that as mothers and daughters. Like, there needs to be some kind of conversation centered around, like, hey, this isn't your responsibility to do that.
Yeah. I think it's a very real issue that our mothers are going to feel our trauma. They just are. You know what I'm saying? Because we're their child, and no mother wants anything to happen to their child. So if we're coming with these feelings, if somebody hurt us, if it was emotionally, physically, or otherwise, our parents are going to take that in. Specifically, our mothers are going to take that in, and they're going to react to it because we're their child. But especially at early ages, it's like right next to the disappointment is we don't want our mom to be upset. And if we have to hide it and deal with it or whatever amongst ourselves just to keep her from the pain, then that's what you'll do. Or the other side of that is I just don't want to deal with all of your emotions. Yeah. I
That
just don't want to
part.
deal with all of your emotions. And so I think as a mom, it's really important for me to demonstrate restraint
Mhm.
when it comes to reacting to him. And I have a son, so that's my only viewpoint as being a mom. But I practice restraint. And if I do react quickly to something or boldly to something, I'll think about it afterwards. Like, okay, how could I have done that differently or shifted, in the way that I did. So if it comes back around, I'm going to do it differently. Um, from little things like today, he slightly walked in the street. It wasn't like we were in the parking lot and he got out the car and he went a little past the car. And I'm like, hey, come on back. Car's coming now. You can't be walking in the street. You know what I'm saying? And that was a big reaction for him going 2 steps past the car. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But immediately mom was like, hey, hey, you know what I'm saying? Protect your
The
child. Get
fear.
it back. You know what I'm saying? It was fear. And I think for
Hmm.
most moms, that's what it is when we react. It's fear, it's big emotion because these are our babies. They're our cubs and we bears, lions. You know what I'm saying? Like, not my baby. And we get these big reactions, these big emotions instead of being calm enough in the moment, which is a practice sport, honey. It's not a real quick thing. Just so all
I'm
the
just
moms
now starting to get to the point where you gotta literally have your poker face on. You have to make
basically,
it
basically, that's exactly
all
what,
the
because you still
time,
feeling the feelings. You still feel them.
but
But it's
show no emotion, and right, not no emotion, but just show no reaction, like no
yeah,
big
control
reaction.
them in a way that it doesn't startle the
Right.
child or stifle the child off bat so you can continue to have a conversation or you can understand something. You know what I'm saying? Like even let's say like a child touched something, right? And depending on where you are or what they touching, your immediate reaction is screaming, like, hey, don't touch that. Hey, drop it. Or whatever it is, you're immediately like, no, don't touch. But what if you let them touch it? Now, of course, if it's not dangerous, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we're in the store, Jaleel finds himself a store clerk often. He was stacking some stuff one time, and I was like, "You work here?" And I was messing with him. So now every time we go to the store, he's stacking stuff, and he like, "I work here." All right. So I let him do it to a certain, point, and then I could talk him through it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Maybe we don't want to do that or touch or stack that on that because if it falls, then you know what I'm saying. And now he can rationalize it and think it through. Like, oh, you're right. If it goes too high, then it can fall, and that's the issue. Blah blah blah. Then me being like, hey, put that down. Stop touching stuff. You always touch stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a
Right.
different. It's a different reaction, and it's gonna do different things to that child mentally. And that's just a mild example, but we do that all the time when it comes to life things for our children.
We
Like
do
if
that for simple stuff.
simple stuff, but then the
Simple
issues
things.
of the big things of them coming to us, like if it's dating, right? And you might be like, no dating until you 35. You know what I'm saying? Some parents are like that. And she comes and talks to you about a boy at school. You know what I'm saying? Or a girl at school. You know what I'm saying? And your immediate reaction is, you can't date to do the do. She's not gonna ever come back and talk to you again about nobody
I
being
will
interested in nothing.
I will commend my parents. I will commend my parents for when I finally brought somebody home and I was like, hey, I like this person and I'm doing this and I don't want to sneak about and do it. Like, I like this person out to the age, I'm coming to you and I'm being honest. It wasn't received well the first time, but then, they came back around and was like, okay, all right, there's some rules. And then, I had rules that I had to abide by, right? But I still feel like even times when we think we're doing it the right way, there's still some times when we drop the ball in certain things.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so we trying to change the course, but somehow we still revert back to what we know, like what our parents did, and so on and so on. So just as you saying, like you have to keep yourself in constant check with how you react to things. I have to be not arrogant enough to think like I did that all the time. Like, yeah, I did it different this time. I got it all together. Because undoubtedly, when I thought that I've been doing things differently, it's been times where them kids they'll tell me like, okay, you still ended up doing this, mommy. Like you did this, but you still ended up doing this, and it was kind of contradictory, and it didn't make any sense. So I think that we have to always come back to it and reevaluate how we're handling it over and over and over and over again. It's not just one instance, it's constantly. We have to rethink, okay, can I do better with this? Or do I need to broaden the conversation more on this? Do I need to, put my foot down? Because that's another thing too. Finding a common balance. Like I still have to find balance between like, okay, yeah, I'm open-minded, mommy, but I also said what I said. I said what I said because I know differently. I know something that you don't know. Prime example was my oldest, Noraya, being on the internet and being on things like TikTok, etc. I was very, very strict with who she can chat with and who she could talk to.
Absolutely.
And she was very frustrated with me for a long time with this. And I was telling her, I said, listen, I know, and I said what I said, and I know things that you don't know. There's too many predators. There's a lot of crazy people out here, and they are really good at what they do. So you may not realize that you're being groomed in a situation, and you're being groomed in a situation. This is my protection for you. I'm protecting you because there are a lot of crazy folks out here in the world, and they're looking for kids. They're looking for kids like you who are trying to figure it out, going through some stages and phases in life, because you are an easy target. And so, no, I will not make it so that you can get DMs and you can chat on these platforms, because it's for your protection. And it was a lot of back and forth. So eventually I just went ahead and gave a little rope just to let her do it. And like clockwork, somebody was trying to groom her. And I had to show her, like, see, I was letting you have this opportunity, but let me show you how this is grooming. And I started breaking it down for her. And she was like, oh my God, I missed that. Oh my God, I missed that. Oh, I didn't think about that. Oh my gosh, I'm scared now. Like, this really is, it's so easy and it's so quick. So sometimes you have to find that balance with being open-minded, giving them the space, but also I said what the hell I said, and I said what I said because I'm protecting you. I'm being your protector. I'm being that mother bear. And sometimes even with doing that, kids don't come talk to you then, because it's like, oh, they don't understand me. Like, I know at first she thought I just didn't understand her, and I had the guilt of that, and like, okay, I don't want her to, I'm not trying to chase her into, doing this more because she thinks she can't talk to me. I just had to kind of give her the rope a little bit, just enough so that she can see what I meant, and then explain to her. And I feel like I wouldn't have got that.
But you know what's really great about both stories that you told? One, in the first situation, about you saying, you patting yourself on the back because you did it differently, even pat yourself on the back. Because even though you may slip up, because that's what parenting is a circle and an ongoing journey for forever, because you're going to have kids forever, of slipping
Ever.
up. Like, even if your kids is 60 and you 80 or however old you had your child, like, you know what I'm saying? You're probably
I
gonna
had to
still be
think about
slipping
it.
up.
I'm like, how old is my kid gonna be when I'm 80? I had to think about it.
Right? Whatever your math is, everybody math gonna be different. But at the same time, it's like you are trying and you are succeeding. You know how I know you're succeeding? Because your children check you and they feel
Facts.
comfortable enough to check you, to hold you accountable. If you weren't doing something right, they wouldn't have said nothing to you. Like, you know what I'm saying? You just
Not a
would have been out here
word.
thinking. Because in households where children don't feel comfortable talking to their parents because of fear or whatever else, they not checking their parents even politely. You know what I'm saying? They're just grinning and bearing and dealing with it. But your children are like, you know what, mom? Right there? That last statement? They're correcting you. So that's how you know you're doing it right. Even like with Jaleel, baby, this little 4 going on 5-year-old over here, honey. He
That ain't
got
no
all
five,
the
4
energy.
going on 5 year. He going on 45.
I was basically, you hear me talking to you, but like
45.
he feels comfortable enough to, and this could be a good or a bad thing, is how you angle it as they grow up, but he has the audacity to challenge authority, and not in like a super arrogant disrespectful way, just like, no, I don't understand that doesn't make sense to me. I feel like this is the best course of action. And you know what I'm saying? And normally parents would be like, boy, I said, you know what I'm saying? And I'd be like, I get that you feel that way, but this is because this, that, and the third, where I can explain to him. And then he'll be like, oh, okay. And then we'll go do whatever it is we were doing. But the fact that he is going to challenge authority is something that I'm actually proud of. The fact that
As
he's
you
going to
should be.
communicate, that's something I'm proud of.
Yes.
And as parents, we have to understand that even though we don't want it to be this, it's this. They're going to do it to us too. We're like, do it to the outside world, not me. I said what I said, but they're going to do it to us too because they're practicing with us.
And I don't mind that so much because I'm not infallible, right? I'm gonna make mistakes, like we've said here plenty of times. I don't mind when my kids challenge my authority. There's times where maybe they challenge my authority where I'm short-tempered on that day. I'm tired. Maybe I've had a long day and I just don't feel like
Happens to the best of us.
I just don't feel like it with you today. So usually that's the only time where I feel some sort of way. If they ask me, well, why I can't do something. Like if I'm saying like no to something, well, why is it no? I couldn't ask that when I was listen,
Because I
Linda.
said so.
I said what I said, right? That was because I said so was the I said what I said before there was the I said what I said. Because
Absolutely.
I said so.
Absolutely.
So I never could just be like, why? Well, why not? Or why did you say that? So I do allow them to do that, for the simplest things, even if it's so much of, can I have some ice cream right now? If I say no, well, why not? Because you've had too much sugar today. You don't need any more sugar today. It's a certain time of the night that's gonna mess with your brain when it's time to relax and go to bed. It's too late. And because I plan on eating it. That's why. And I can't, you and I both can't eat it because it's mine. That's why. But I feel comfortable enough when them asking me those why questions because they need to be asking why. I want them to be asking why when they're in the world. I want them to ask people if it doesn't make sense to just not be a follower and just go with the flow. Be okay to ask questions. And shoot, that the thing is, I know that they talked a lot about the Bible when we were growing up and staying in the child's place according to scripture, but it also tells you to seek information for yourself. It tells you to do
But
your
see,
own
that's the
research.
thing about Bibles. It's like people spit the part of the verse that suits their their need at that moment. Even like with slavery, when they were trying to keep the slaves docile, they only quoted pieces of different scriptures that made their point valid. So it's the
That's
same thing that people do today. Like when they talk about women submitting, but they don't read the part that say what the man got to be doing and providing for the woman to submit and how you need to treat your wife. They don't read that part. You know what I'm
nope.
saying? They pick and choose the pieces that fits their narrative best, and it's alternative facts. You know what I'm saying? When you
Facts.
use it that way, it's alternative facts. But with our children, we wonder why we have a world full of sheep, and we're like, how did we get to this point where people just doing this and that, and all the things is
We made them like that
we raise them to just listen, to
to be
listen and never
obedient.
question. Even you know what I'm saying, and I tell Jaleel, like, even with teachers at school, I'm like, when mommy's not there, these people are in charge. But if you ever feel like there is something that happens that you don't understand or that didn't sit right with you, you come tell me, and then mommy gonna
Don't
check
tell
you.
me
You know what I'm saying? And so,
every
like,
time.
even in those situations, mommy can be wrong, but so can they. So if you feel like something's wrong on that end, you come tell me, and then I'm gonna check them. And
Right.
so it's question everything, and don't take things at face value. And that's a life skill that they will have forever when you raise that into them as children. But if we're too busy being afraid of our parents, then we will never be able to practice that skill.
Yeah. Another point that I want to say before our hour, because that hour goes by really quickly, and we're rounding 9 o'clock, and we know it's the Wednesday, and it's still the middle of the week. People got to get up, go to work, et cetera, right? Um, another thing that I find having a common conversation with when we're talking about relationships between mothers and daughters is mothers just being very hard on their daughters, not being as nurturing with their daughters as maybe they'll be nurturing with their siblings, especially if they're male siblings, etc. And feeling like there is some sort of disconnect with mothers and daughters that you don't see with mothers and their sons. And so a lot of women complain about that. They're like, man, moms are so hard on their girls. And then you have sons that complain about their fathers. Fathers are just so hard on their sons. And so I think that that's a huge reason too why there's a lot of disconnect with coming to your mom and talking to them, because it's like, I don't know if my mom was just going to be hard on me. Moms, I think that because our moms have gone through so much stuff, they want us to have like this iron strength. So in their mind, they're making us tough. They're making us Teflon so that we're able to deal with the struggles that there is of being a woman, but
Mhm.
oftentimes what that does is that separates us. So now I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to come to you about anything because you're going to give me a very iron response where it's not feeling like we're connected. It's not compassionate. It's not nurturing. It's just, oh, well, that's just how it is. You're gonna have to, hey, that's tough. Tough titty said the kitty, but the milk's still good. You just gotta get up and keep moving. And I want that to change. Like, I want that to change. Like,
We just gonna bypass that whole. We just gonna keep going with the conversation like you ain't just saying.
saying, please, I'm showing my age now. You've
I
never
know
heard
I've
that
heard it. I've heard it, but I
said? Okay.
not you did the extended version.
Well,
Okay.
that's what Tough Titty said the kitty, but the milk's still good. That's the saying. Yeah,
I ain't
look
never heard
it
that
up.
back part. I listen. I guess people is picking and choosing statements with me too. I only heard the top of that, not the back of that. That's funny. But I absolutely agree with you. And I've had conversations with different women where their perspective was very similar. And I just had this conversation with the elder the other day about how the difference that we see working with youth, like in the school systems and after school programs, the different way situations where we're in the field with youth. And you see a clear difference between men and women or boys and girls in that aspect. Clear difference. The girls are mostly focused, they're driven, they have self-initiative, they have goals, they're coming in, they're doing what they need to do. And then the boys are goofing off, playing in the back, they, not applying themselves, they're just chilling, they coasting, you know what I'm saying? Like, and not taking it seriously. And then we're thinking about why, and I let her know, I was like, I have conversations with women all the time where I've heard them say and had experiences where their mom trained them to do everything. You got to know how to cook. You got to know how to clean. You got to know how to do this. You got to make your own money. You got to take care of a household. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to do this. You got to do that. But their brother was playing a video game all day, sitting on the
Mm-hmm.
couch.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they younger, they still ended up cooking and cleaning and taking care of big brother sitting on the couch. You know what I'm saying? We're not keeping that same energy, as they would say. When it comes to the boys and the girls, we're preparing our girls to conquer the world and do their thing and blah blah blah, be self-sufficient. But we're not doing the same thing with our men. So for me, it's like, one, if we're expecting or assuming that the girls are gonna grow up and get married to these men, and the men have no skills or no drive, no, you know what I'm saying? And then the girls got all of this. First of all, it's going to be a rift and a drift between the two. We're talking about equally yoked. They're not equally yoked. You gotta go get her in a couch bum. You know what I'm saying?
I would beg to even argue that I don't think that it's being looked at like that. I think that's part of the trauma in womanhood, especially for our mothers and grandmothers, etc. Like, that was the expectation. That's what it meant to be a woman of the household, is that you're essentially doing all of these things while he just goes out and makes the money and brings the money home. And so they have literally like taught us to fall in line with that same thing for so many years. I think my mother's and my parents' generation, and I just recently had this conversation with my dad, where I think that's the generation that started to push back at the notion that that's what they were meant to do and that's it, because there was so much abuse and harm in that structure where women didn't feel like humans. They didn't feel cared about. They didn't feel taken care of. They didn't feel protected emotionally and mentally and spiritually. And so they started to push back towards that. And they started to train the next generation, my generation of girls, to push back towards that too, and to not fall in line with that because it didn't feel safe. It didn't feel like it was the best thing. So I think that even if they want to change it, I think there's a lot of other things that come behind that. That's probably for a different show, where moms kind of are more relaxed with their sons than they are with their daughters. I think that there's also an issue there that we don't talk about with why moms are like that. I've had people question, like, is my mom like not happy for me? Is she like jealous of when I do certain things and she didn't do certain things in life? Like, not knowing why it's that push and pull, that tug of war with their mothers if they accomplish something, and their mothers don't acknowledge it or don't celebrate when they accomplish things. I think that there's something else there that we are not really touching on and we're not talking about, where it's more than just trying to prepare, girls to be, in society and to do or fall in line with their role, but also it's some sort of trauma response that parents and daughters, that mothers and daughters have, like this gap where they can't feel that connection with their mom, or their moms are just really, really, really tough on them. One of the things that I hated growing up was, and not even growing up, I remember when I became a mom, when I first had my daughter, it was very hard for me. My mom was so much like, I am not going to raise your kid. I'm not going to raise your kid. I don't want you to think that it's easy to just go around just having a bunch of babies and trying to raise a whole bunch of kids. My mom just really didn't want me to have a lot of kids and have to deal with or put life on hold to be a mom. So that was a really big deal for her. But when I first had my daughter, my mom would not watch my baby for me to go out. Not ever. Like she would help me if I needed to go to work and school. But she was very clear. If you want to go out with your friends, you're going to have to take your baby with you. And you're going to have to, it was just something that she didn't do for a long time when I became a mom. And it was tough. It was very, very, very hard for me, because it was like, I am not this. Giving me a break isn't meaning that I'm going to go out now and think you're going to raise all of these children. Now I'm going to go out and make all these babies and just drop them off to you. But for her, in her mind, making it hard for me would be a deterrent for me to do that. When at times, instead, it overwhelmed me. When I needed a break as a mom and I was struggling as a mom and I just needed time off and I needed to decompress and just, have some time to myself. So I was having baby blues, etc. I didn't feel comfortable going to my mom and saying, like, I'm having a tough time and I just need a break. Like, this is hard. I'm having struggles with motherhood and I just need a break. And that was really, really hard. But in hindsight, I understand what she was trying to do and why she was doing it. But in turn, what it did was it just made that journey so much more complicated for me. And it was so hard for me. And it took years for me to tell her, like, that was really hard, because there were times where I was depressed and I was just really struggling, when I just needed just a little bit of a break. I just needed, some time. And every blue moon, then after that, she would say, okay, you and Robert can go get dinner and the baby could stay for for a little while. Or, a special occasion, maybe she would watch her so I could go out. But if I was just having like a tough time and I just needed to leave the house and just, have a break, she was like, you want to have this baby, this your baby. And it was like, dang, why is she so tough with me with this? Like, I get it. I am not expecting this. Like, I'm not going to leave her and then not go back. Like, I live here. I got to come back, right?
I live here. You know where I live.
But it was really, really, really tough. It was really hard. And I feel like there's so many more stories out there that we can pull up and we could talk about how moms were just so focused on teaching the lesson that they forgot to just be the support, because they cared so much about preparation and preparing you for the whole world there is with being, womanhood, because it's not easy. It's tough. And when you have parents that have gone through some very traumatic experiences and traumatic things, you don't want your children to experience those things too. So you become so iron tough on them that it alienates them. It keeps them away, and they don't feel comfortable coming and talking to you when they might need to come and talk to you. They feel alone. And I just really want us as a society to unpack that and start addressing that and recognize that it's a real thing, that a lot of daughters just feel like their moms are just way too hard on them, way too tough. And it's causing a divide that we need to fix for the next generation, so we're not continuing to grow further and further apart. So I
And
see.
that breeds resentment, though. Like when you feel like you're doing it all by yourself and your mom wasn't there to really help you, then that's resentment comes, especially if you feel like you can't just say, "Hey, mom, I really need you," and you're not showing up for me in the way that I need you to show up for me. Especially when you just can't say it, it starts festering. And then you wonder why you can't never see your grandkids now, and it's been 5 years since we had a random phone conversation. You know what I'm saying? Like, because then the gap gets bigger and bigger. And that's part of the reason why we don't have those types of relationships with our mother. I feel like as mothers, we feel like we always know best, but we don't. And so in that moment, we have to be okay with communicating and working it out and seeing like both sides, because it's not just you making the rules, especially when your children get older. But in general, like I said, my baby's 4. We have conversations. Like, tell me how you feel, and we can move forward in a way that's best for everybody. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? They are people. And then we wonder why those teen years and resentment start kicking in, and rebellious, using the air quotes around that one. The rebellious years kick in. It's because they sick of your ish at that point, and now they getting a little autonomy about themselves, and they like, I ain't gotta deal with you. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then
It,
grown come in, and then you don't talk anymore when they
I
become
was going to
adults.
say that's when it comes to the I don't have to deal with you, when they get grown and they move out and they on their own, and then you have those parents that are like, my kids never call, never come check on me, never take me to go do anything. It's because of their resentment. But as teens, it's when they start pushing back towards everything. Like everything you do becomes like a reason to push back, because somewhere along the lines in there, you have dehumanized them and you have made them feel a level of lowness that they just can't get past, and they feel like they can't check you on it either. They feel like they don't have a voice, and they feel like you won't care or it's not going to do anything, and they feel powerless. So how they start to find power is in, no, like, I'm just not going to do, I'm just not finna make you happy or make it easy for you as a parent, because you make me feel like shit. Like sometimes
And you don't
we
make it
don't
easy for me
realize,
to
and you
exist
don't make it
as a
easy.
parent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't realize as parents just how terrible and how dehumanizing we can be with children. And it was something that was super important to me. When I tell people, when they ask me about the relationships that I have with my kids, I tell them, because I treat them like human beings first. Yes, I'm their mom. Yes, I deserve and command a certain level of respect.
Absolutely.
But I am still going to treat them like they are human beings, because they are. I choose to see their humanity first. So I meet them at that space, first and foremost, before anything else. And that has helped to build that rapport. I can't control them really at all. Like, we think we control our kids, but you can't really make anybody do something.
Right.
I can't make my kids do anything. Now, I can say I'm not going to tolerate, and what my boundaries are, what I'm not going to put up with, or I'm not going to do in response to if you don't want to do as you're told, or when I'm giving you guidance. But even in that, I try and meet them with that humanity first. How am I telling them what to do? How am I making them feel when I tell them that? Just recently, I snapped at one of the kids, I snapped at my son, and I had to pull back, and I was like, that was inappropriate. I am so sorry. I said, listen, I am sorry for how I met you when you made me upset. I said, now, I should not have talked to you that way because you upset me. I apologize. And I said, let me explain to you, however, how that made me feel and where their reaction came from. And then we talked about it. And he said, Well, I didn't mean to make you feel like that. I guess I could understand why your initial reaction was this, but I forgive you and thank you for apologizing. And we move right along with that. Some parents would never do that. If they met you with that reaction, oh well, I
That's
said
what
what
it
I
was.
said.
And even
And
if they regretted it, they still wouldn't come and say
they
sorry and
still
tell you
wouldn't
that they
say it.
regret it.
They still wouldn't say it, but they deserve that apology. They deserve that acknowledgement. And I think that a lot of daughters are still waiting for that acknowledgement from their mothers, like waiting for our mothers to be like, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do, or maybe that was hard. You know, when I finally did have the conversation with my mom just about how it made me feel when sometimes I was struggling, I just needed a break. Like I wasn't trying to take advantage. Like I didn't even ask, like most of the time. And I didn't want to ask because I wanted to be that mother. I wanted to be a mother. I wanted to raise my own kid under the ways and principles that I saw would be best for my kid. So I was never thought in my mind to take advantage of support. But I would have liked to have known that I had it in this way. Like if it was school or work, my mom was on it. I mean, she would take a vacation day if she needed to make sure I could make my classes at school. But if I was just overwhelmed, hey, that's just part of motherhood. You're gonna have to tough it out, figure it out, that's it. And it was really hard in those days. But when we finally had the conversation, she did acknowledge, like, okay, well, that was tough. I just didn't want you to think that it was easy peasy, lemon squeezy, just popping babies out. Like, you should have known me better than that, because most of y'all, when y'all found out I was having a baby, everybody was shocked because everybody thought I didn't like kids. So it was like, oh, sis,
Which is
that's
way an opposite from the truth.
like kids. Oh,
You love yours to
didn't.
pieces.
I do love mine. And I love kids that didn't come from my womb. Like they still my kids. But at that point in life, I did not like kids. No,
Now
I did
I
not.
do want to bring up a point because I did finish watching Sex Life. Okay, I did finish watching it. For those of you who missed the whole ordeal that happened last year
Last
around
year.
Sex Life, it was a whole thing here that we gonna talk if y'all knew. All right, if y'all returning, y'all should remember the whole ordeal in multiple
Oh
episode
Lord.
trilogies of conversations that we've had around the show Sex Life on Netflix. Okay,
If
so
you
they made a
haven't
part
watched it, watch
two.
it.
If you haven't seen it, please do. They made a part two, and I didn't even know they was coming out with a part two. I thought it was done. Low key forgot about it until I must have clicked past the little thing. I was like, oh,
All
they have
the text
new episodes.
messages and messages I got from my friend group that was like, "Oh, you weren't gonna tell us, or did you not know?" I was like, "Yeah, I know. I
I
watched
was
it
not
already. I
aware.
watched it the first day."
So you knew. You Patty. You ain't gonna say nothing to nobody.
It kind of slipped in my mind. See, what had happened was
Not you watched it the first day.
I watched it the
This was
first
like,
day.
what, a week, 2 weeks ago or something like that. I had text you like, girl.
I
And I was
know.
so like on 10 because I had no clue that this was even a thing in the making. And then it was there and I'm like, yo. So I'm texting
So,
Dante.
in all transparency, I started looking it up because I felt like it had to be more. I was like, it can't just end here. Like they have to wrap this up. So I started Googling it about maybe 3 or 4 weeks before it came out. Just like, what are they doing with this? Because I knew it had been a while. I'm like, they can't just leave it like this. And when I Googled it, it was like it was gonna air on, I think it was like March 4th or something like that. So I like, and I'm sorry for all the people that I had watched this show and was waiting on the edge with me that I didn't tell y'all about season 2. I will take accountability for that, and I
Because baby,
apologize.
season one ended real spicy
It,
late,
it, it
okay?
ended real
And just was
spicy.
like,
Like
and done. And we all like, whoa, whoa,
I knew it couldn't. There was no way it was gonna leave it there. But it was just
whoa.
a matter of like when they were gonna have the next season. So
I
when
low key completely forgot about it. It were
listen,
all the things
but wasn't it
until I
good?
saw it sitting there. It was good, and
It was good.
bringing it around to the subject matter, like her and her mother had a very real heart to heart in this season. And so this may be a spoiler, may not be a spoiler. Still go watch it anyway. Her mom was a butt to her. Her mom was a butt to her, and she resented her mother so much she didn't really want anything to do with her mother. She like, you can come play with these grandbabies, but stay up out my way. She was just done with her mother, and pretty much had been this way for years at this point, in her adult life. But we also see like why she felt this way about her mother and what happened to cause this rift. And the mother didn't even fully realize what was happening or what she was doing until they had that conversation. And then the mother finally opened up about her own personal experience that led her to shift and treat her daughter the way she was treating her. But it came to a resolution so that they can move on and have a better relationship. And we should not have to wait until we grown to have these kind of heart to heart with our parents. Like, if it's something that you need to say to your mother, say it. And respect, again, of course, always respect. But say it. If it's something as a mother you need to say to your daughter, even if it's you knew you should have said I'm sorry 10 years ago, but you still ain't said I'm sorry about that one thing you did when she was 15, say you sorry. It ain't never too late to say you sorry. So like, even if it's on a daughter end or a mother end, say what you need to say, because you're not doing nothing but stealing years of having a good, healthy relationship with your child. You're stealing years away from yourself on both ends.
Right.
So just say what you need to say. And so that was really beautiful to me. And I spark notes that without giving too much away. So I did a good job.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a really, one of the reasons why I really enjoyed that series was because I think it talked about a lot of issues that we face as women that we shy away from talking about when it comes to sexuality, when it comes to what you should want in a relationship, in a marriage, like when it comes to how we suppress so many things about our own selves and our own desires to fit into a box. It just really, really covered a lot of things, and a lot of themes that I personally can relate to, because they were issues that I undoubtedly faced at points in my own life. So I love this show.
Motherhood,
I mean,
it's
just all,
relationships, it's
down
family,
to
it's
how
friendships, it's business.
all of that, and how to stay true to who you are in the midst of all of that, which was one of the biggest underlining themes in the series. But I really, really loved this series. I really loved how they wrapped up everything and how it really brought attention to a lot of the issues that we face as a society, as co-parents, etc. Right? But that thing with her mom and trying not to give too much is another issue that I think I want to touch on before we close out the show. And that is understanding where a lot of that disconnect with our mothers is because they have gone through trauma themselves. And a lot of what they're reacting to and how they're reacting is their trauma responses to things that they have dealt with in their own lives. I know that a lot of the things that my mom did was in her way trying to prevent me from going through some of the same traumatic experiences that she had. But ultimately, what it did was create different types of traumatic experiences for me, because there wasn't really a place or a space and time where my mom found a different means of unpacking what she went through. So it's hard to change how you respond to something as a parent moving forward if you don't unpack your trauma in itself. So in that scene that you were talking about with her mom had to take a moment in there, unpack her own trauma, and recognize, well, you know what? I did do this. And it's because I was reacting to something that happened to me. And I just didn't want you to experience that. And I don't think I handled that in the right way. And I think that that's something that I would like to see happen, both from our mothers and then us as mothers, is that we unpack our own trauma, that we really dive deep into why we react to the way we react to things, and how we can unpack that, how we need to heal from that trauma so that we can not just make a different outcome, but that it's actually a good outcome. Because just because we do something different doesn't mean that it's also the right way and it's the better way either. So sometimes we're just doing the opposite. We're going to the other side of the spectrum, which isn't really that safe either, or really isn't that well intending either. So we need to really unpack what we're going through, unpack what we've been through, so that we can make better choices moving forward, so that we can actually change those generational traumas and those generational curses and make it better for the future. So before we head out, sis, because we done ran over a little bit, but we also got started a little late. And then, we ain't been talking for a minute, so I'm excited to be back.
So,
What's
we
your
gonna
closing
talk.
thoughts? We gonna talk. What's your closing thoughts?
My closing thoughts is, when it comes to mother-daughter relationships, we have to move past the hurt. We have to move past the trauma, and we have to say what needs to be said regardless of the fear. We have to move past the fear. We have to check ourselves for the greater good. So even if it may not be the way you want it done, your child has a voice. They have a say so. They have an opinion. And in checking ourselves and actively working towards our own healing, we become better parents for our children. But not only better parents, we become better examples for our children in the way that they will move moving forward. So work on yourself, work on your healing, because it's also never too late to be your best self and to work on the relationship with your child. Even if you have real grown children, it's still not too late to correct yourself and then go back and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I did that wrong and I apologize. And can we start over? Because one thing about life is that it's short, on this plane of existence anyway. And the other part about it is that it's what we make it. We are the most powerful beings on the universe, because every choice that we make equals our reality. And so shift your reality. If you don't like the relationship between your mother and you, or you and your daughter, then change it. But start with fixing you first. And that would be my closing remarks, because a lot of people, I think, when it comes to family situations in general, it's not just mother-daughter relationships, it's family situations in general. Auntie Keisha been mad at Auntie Kim for 30 years. They didn't forgot what they was mad about, but they still mad, honey. Let all of that go.
That part.
Boy, I think she brought the greens, and she thought she was gonna bring the greens, and whatever it was. You don't even remember no more. It was 30 years ago, but you still mad and holding grudges. Got the kids generations later holding grudges, and we don't even know why y'all fight. You don't even know why you fight.
Don't
It's
have a
very
clue.
simple. Don't even have a clue no more. It was 30
Mm-hmm.
years ago. Something happened. That's all you remember. Something happened and I was mad and she was petty. Whatever it is, let it go. Start actively working on our healing so we can heal our babies. Because we have to be the examples of what living free, living happy, living peacefully, living joyful, and living in our power is. And not healing, not reviewing our trauma so that we can move through it. It's going to hinder not only your relationship with your daughter or with your mother, but with everyone. So we got to do that healing work.
Facts is that all facts. Everything you said, yes and yes. We need that. Yes and yes. I think it's hard to wrap that up because you kind of hit on a lot of things there. But what I want a closing thought and say is, the whole talk is about what I wish I could tell my mother. Tell your mother.
Mm-hmm.
That's just it. Just tell her. You may not get the reaction that you think. You may not get the reaction that you want, but sitting in it doesn't help anything. And what we do is we let that fester like a sore. And what happens is, instead of addressing it, we just build a gap between us. And we're just getting further and further apart. And I just don't want to see that happen. We need to stay connected for the future generations to be strong. We need to stay connected so that we can make corrections. And we can't make corrections if we don't have the conversations. That's the whole reason about why we talk. When we come on, we gonna talk. The whole point of how we're going to fix these generational curses and these generational traumas together. Like, we have to be willing to just tell each other the truth. And it may hurt, but you got to do it. And as a mother, I'm talking to you as mothers. If you have daughters or you have sons, be willing to listen when they tell you. Be willing to be vulnerable when they tell you. Be willing to apologize when they correct you, because we don't have all the answers. I am not perfect. I am doing the best I can with the tools that I have and with the mistakes of my foreparents, right? But I am not perfect even in that. And so there'll be trial and error, there'll be some issues, but I want to be better. And in order for me to be better, I have to be willing to get that constructive criticism, even from my children, because they are going to make you better. They're going to make you more aware so that you can be, different. I feel like what ends up happening, however, is, and why we joke a lot about our parents being different types of grandparents, is that they start to see some of the parent and the pressure and what they did as parents, and they get to be that person they wanted to be with their grandchildren. But you can be that person that you want to be with your children. You can be that with your children too. There is a way to do that where you don't have to sacrifice the respect. And I just want us to talk about it. I want us to get better with that. So that will be my closing thought.
And we do these talks, the mother and daughter heart to heart. If y'all missed
Yes.
it, Sante was a part of our very first one, actually. Her
Yes.
and her daughter were a part of the very first mother daughter heart to heart panel discussion. And that's every year. That's
Mm-hmm.
every year, the Sunday before Mother's Day every year, where mothers and daughters of all different ages can really have this heart to heart conversation, but even more so amongst the transparency, they're doing it in front of people. And I love the moment that you and your daughter had live on the show. She's like, but hold on. I gotta say this point. I gotta say this point. But she did it again respectfully, and she
She
wanted to
did.
be heard in that moment. And we
She
all
did.
were better for experiencing that moment. And sometimes we don't know how to do it. So we gotta see
Yeah.
other people actively do it so we can take notes and learn how to do it in our own lives. And so y'all be on the lookout in May, baby. We already at the end of
I
March.
was
How
about to
that
say there
happens?
better be another one. Like, we
There is.
absolutely need another one. And you also do it for the fathers and sons
We do
also.
it for the
So
fathers
no
and
one is
sons.
left out in the conversation. Um,
Absolutely.
I also, before we head out, for those of you that have not seen, on Saturday mornings, I am coming live to you with my co-host Elle from Chicago Community Activism, the podcast. We are highlighting and talking about all the amazing different types of activism that is happening around the Chicago community, Chicagoland, that suburb, Chicago in the city, etc. Because there are a lot of folks out here doing some amazing things to better our communities. And we need more support. We need more eyes on some of these things that are happening in our communities to be the change that we want to see. And so what Chicago Community Activism Podcast does is that we're highlighting a different activist every other Saturday. It's bi-weekly Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. And our last show, we had Nat on there where we talked about all the amazing activism that Natalie does on a day-to-day basis. Because when I say she lives and breathes being the change, she lives and breathes being the change in our community. So don't forget, that'll be live this Saturday, 10 a.m. I'll also be sharing the stream from my page. You can also follow Chicago Community Activism's page if you want to watch it there. And join us. We're going to have a really important conversation on Saturday. I'm very excited about this conversation. We're going to have doula Tiffany Gorman on our show on Saturday to talk about the rise in maternal death and fetal death in the Black community, because there is an alarming shift in how many mothers are dying during childbirth, and that they're not being cared for properly during their pregnancies and post pregnancy, post delivery, and how we can be better about this, and how important it is to take control yourself and find other avenues. She's going to talk about being a doula, how beneficial it is to women who decide to do it this route opposed to in the hospital. We recognize that some people will undoubtedly still have to do things in the hospital if there are certain emergencies, but as someone that had troubled pregnancies and had some very, very tough pregnancies, right? I really wish that there were more information about doulas when I was having my children. But we're going to have that very important conversation again this Saturday at 10 a.m. Check on Facebook Live. I hope to see y'all there.
That's a
Nat,
great and important conversation.
I'm so excited about it. I mean, it really is. And you know, I've had really tough pregnancies. I was on bed rest for both my pregnancies almost the entire time. Almost had my daughter early, had my son early. I had a gynae that actually listened and cared about me, but I can't imagine if I had not have had a gynae that wasn't caring and compassionate and actually listened, where I would have been. And then I was anemic the whole time too, so that's a risk with anemia. So it's a really important conversation, and it's one we're not talking a whole lot about because Black women are dying at alarming rates after childbirth. It has skyrocketed so much. So please be looking out for that conversation. Tiffany is really doing a lot of amazing work as a doula in these communities, and so we just want to highlight that activism also. Before we head out, Nat, did you have anything you wanted to blast coming up? I know you always got stuff coming up.
Girl, the things are coming, okay? So this Saturday, actually, I will be honored at the Rachel
Yes.
Royal Awards for community activism, and thank you for your kind words, sis. Yeah, that's really exciting. So shout out to the Healing Academy. We getting honored, y'all, for our dope work. We do dope
Beyond
work.
Victoria is
Yes, beyond
also
Victoria, we do dope work, y'all.
dopey
Um,
dope.
and it's important work because healing is necessary to heal the ills of this world. It's absolutely necessary. So it's really dope to be honored because we don't do it to get honored. We do it because it's necessary. But when people see us, we appreciate it. So that's exciting. That's Saturday. And then next Friday, y'all, the Melanated in America exhibition opens. It's my favorite sound effect. And
I'm gonna have to
it's
get
gonna
it. So no more tambourine. Do the burr, 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 do that. Okay, I got it. I'm gonna have to find it. I'm gonna have to find the sound effect. But
Yes.
carry on, sis.
But Melanated America exhibition opens next Monday to 31st. We're super excited. It's at the Silver Room in Hyde Park. Super excited to be partnering with the Silver Room. It's our second year. And it's a super dope show. We have some amazing artists. We got some returning artists and some brand new artists that I've never seen or featured before. So I'm really excited about that. We're coming back with the SIP Provs, the BYOB Improv nights on Wednesday nights, once a month. We also have outside of that, we have the open mic, we have the film screening in partnership with the Community Film Workshop of Chicago, celebrating about 54 years of training amazing people in film here on the south side of Chicago, melanated people especially. Really dope. And then we have our closing reception and our artist talk on June 2nd. So the exhibition will be up at the Silver Room. You can go see it anytime if you can't make it to the opening. But we hope to see y'all at the opening at 6 p.m. on the 31st. But if not, you can go to the Silver Room any day. Every day they're open from basically 11 to 8 p.m. Go check out the show. Say hey, send me some selfies. You know what I'm saying? All in the art, all in the space. But yeah, and then I got some really, really, really dope news that I'm gonna announce later that'll be coming down the pipeline for this summer. So y'all stay tuned, okay? Y'all
Oh,
stay
I'm gonna
tuned.
need to get the heads up exclusive. You ain't gonna have me
Yeah.
wait.
Yeah, I actually have two really, really big announcements coming up
Oh, I'm
really
gonna have to find. I
soon.
ain't waiting to know. I don't know. Let me go ahead and end this
You ain't
live
gotta wait, sis. You ain't gotta
because I
wait, but
need to
everybody
know.
else gotta wait.
I
Y'all
need to
gotta
head
hear real
noted.
soon though.
I ain't waiting now. The rest of y'all
Yeah,
can wait.
yeah.
I ain't waiting.
So one announcement will drop next month. So be on the lookout for some big stuff next month. And then the other one will drop in May. So be on the
Mm,
lookout.
all right, sis. Well, we gonna head out for the night. Please join us in 2 weeks for we gonna talk again. We gonna talk about some important things then. The next show will be during one of the most impactful months of the year for me, Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I am extremely passionate about it. Y'all know me, y'all know what I do. So be expecting to have lots of conversations about how we can raise awareness around sexual assault awareness and sexual abuse prevention. So that will more than likely be what our next show will be crossing and what we'll be talking about and what things we can do to break that generational curse. So be looking out for that. And so y'all have a good night. Y'all stay safe and see you in 2 weeks. All right, y'all. Hold on. Gotta stop the live.